Hello and welcome to Math 3A for the summer of 2026 at Hartnell College. This is first semester calculus and my name is Greg Perkins. I'm the instructor. So in this video we're going to go over the syllabus and basically how the class works, what's expected, what are things due, stuff like that. So up here is preferred email, gperkins@hartnell.edu. Instead of a textbook, we're going to be using MyMathLab. With the MyMathLab, I'm actually going to make a second video to explain exactly how that works. But the online homework and online quizzes are going to be done with MyMathLab. So look for that video right after this one. So for a graphing calculator, I use TI-84. So on screen, I'll be showing how to use the TI-84. You could use Desmos or something like that if you don't have a TI-84. Let's skip down to this part right here. So there's basically four main things that make up your grade, or four main tasks to do throughout this 8-week class. The first two are things that I've made up, the problem sets and the podcast problems. So problem sets are the most important, worth 40% of your grade, and then podcast problems. And then, like I said, the MyMathLab, I'll explain the details of that in the second video. So with the flow of the course, if you continue to scroll to the second page of the syllabus, notice that all of the due dates for the whole summer session are already laid out. Also notice that there's something due every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I basically broke it up, a little bit on Monday, a little bit on Wednesday, a little bit on Friday. So you should keep this, either I keep it on my desktop so that I can refer to it, or you could print it out on paper if you want, but definitely keep track of these due dates. Like I said, everything is here for the whole 8-week class. So in general, every Friday, that's when the MyMathLab homework is going to be due. On Mondays, if you look at this Monday, June 15th, there's podcast problems and also problem set 1 that's due on Canvas. And then on Wednesday, there is the MyMathLab quiz, basically on the stuff that you did the previous Friday and Monday. And then the pattern just repeats. Then do the MyMathLab homework, then the podcast, the problem set, then the quiz, etc., etc. Okay. So MyMathLab homework is due on Fridays. So this is basically re-saying what I just said. With the MyMathLab, one quick detail is with the homework, you get unlimited attempts, and with the quizzes, you get 2 attempts, and the best score will be kept out of those 2 attempts. With problem sets, they are graded for correctness, as well as on the podcast problems and problem sets. It's important that you show all of your work, because I grade the steps, not just the answer. So make sure you show all of your work. Let me show you an example. So from last semester, here's an example of a student's work on a problem set. And notice that this person doesn't have the neatest handwriting, but that's not important. What's important is they showed all of the steps. So every step is in there. So this is somebody that was able to print out, either print out or they used a tablet. And you could see the original problems are there in black. Sometimes somebody doesn't have a tablet or doesn't have a printer, which is fine. Then let me just show you this person's work. So then for number 41, they wrote it out. They showed all of the steps. There's a little diagram involved, and there's their final answer. But the main point is that they're showing all of the steps. That's what I'm really trying to say. Okay, now let's take a look at Canvas. So I set this up week by week. So when we get to week 2, then you'll find week 2 up here at the top. With the Math 3A information, this will be floating somewhere near the top, but that has the link to the podcast problems. And by the way, the podcast problems are the easiest points you're ever going to get in a calculus class. So if you look at the podcast problems, so basically what I did is I have 2 examples from every section, and you go to my YouTube channel and you watch me do them. You write down the steps that I do, and then that basically verifies that you watched the video and you watched all of the steps, and then you turn that in. So when you go back to where the podcast problems are. Then the podcast videos link is right there, and all of the podcasts are there in order, and you can just go in and watch me solve. And that is where the vertex is. So it reached the... I'm in the middle of the video because I was watching it right before this to make sure all the links worked and everything. So you don't see my face because you need to be able to see my work and my steps and how I use the calculator. So like I said, I'm going to be using TI-84, and I'll be showing you how to use that if you haven't used one before. Also, this really shows what I mean by show all of the steps, because that's exactly what I'm going to do. Is I'm not going to skip any steps. I'm going to show all the steps one by one until we get to the answer. All right, let's go back to the Canvas. Go back to home. Okay, so now we're ready to start. So it's week 1. You go, all right, what's going on in week 1? So week 1, because there's nothing due on Monday or Wednesday. Usually there is, but for week 1, there's nothing due on Monday and Wednesday. But there is sections 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.5, and 2.6 due on Friday, by the end of Friday. So that homework will be due on MyMathLab. So the idea is that you go in and watch the video, take notes, or you can take a look at the notes. So here in black are the notes in PDF version, or you can watch the video, and then that's going to be similar to the video that I was just showing you. All right, here we go. The first section of calculus, except that one was a little bit louder. So anyway, you watch the video, take notes, or you can use the PDF version of the notes. And then you would say, okay, now I'm ready to do the homework for 2.1, and you'd skip over to MyMathLab and do the homework for section 2.1. And keep in mind, with the homework on MyMathLab, you do get unlimited attempts. All right, let me go back to week 1. So the notes and the lectures are all here. So they will always be here under each week. And then I also put a little summary each week of what's due that week. So then it breaks down on Monday, June 8th. You should be watching this video. Good job, you got that done. You should sign up for MyMathLab. There's also going to be a link to the video about MyMathLab right in here. And then by Friday, the end of Friday, midnight, then complete the homework for 2.1, 2, etc., all the way through 2.6. We don't usually do that much in 1 week, but like I said, because there's no other work due on Monday or Wednesday, then we're just going to get a good jump on it on Friday, June 12th. And then I say, by the way, next week, here's what's coming up, problem set number 1. And problem sets are where you do need to show all of your work. So if you take a look at the problem set, and this is where I said, if you have a printer, you could print it out. That would be nice. You could show all of your work in this space. Otherwise, you would write down on a piece of paper, problem set number 1, here's my name, here's the question, and then write your solution with all of the steps here. And then you would just go over to, once you're finished, you would convert it to a PDF, and you'd go over to assignments, and you'd click on problem set number 1, and then you would upload it. So right now it's actually June 5th, so class hasn't actually started. So usually there's a button right here, right in this area, to say submit your work. So you just click on that and then submit your work. Okay, so that's basically each week you will find that little schedule. Oh yes, I was also going to say, with the problem sets, I also have example videos. So I basically take that semester's or summer's problem set, and then I just pick some of the questions. I change the function or the numbers or something like that, but I do some examples just like that. So there's a video right there. And then, like I showed you, the podcast is where you just watch the videos and write down the examples. All right, so next. So if you look at each week, it's basically the same setup. So what's due that week? So that will always be there, and it's broken down. Here's what's due each week, etc., each day of that week. And then it says, okay, next week, at the beginning of next week, here's what to look forward to. All right, so that's basically it. Along the way, there are some extra things, like I know that sometimes people need help with a review of solving trig equations, so there's some extra stuff in there, basically sprinkled in. But that's basically it. And if you have any questions, please email me, gperkins@hartnell.edu, and then I'm going to finish this and I'll make the video for my math lab, so watch that right after this. Thanks.